not with the same regularity. In fact, that left column, I guarantee you, in this building, as we speak, right now, some of those things, if not all of them, are going on. Guaranteed. Because they do. They happen everywhere, every day, wherever people work together. There's a little bitty statistic over here that you probably can't read. And so here's my disclaimer, not a disclaimer, but a note about statistics. There's two things that I would like to tell you about statistics as they relate to this discussion. The first one is, I understand that statistics can be used to show different things. And some people are real good at skewing statistics and saying, oh, look at this, because you can be real clever with them. We've not done that. These are pretty much straightforward. They are what they are, right? And we can talk about why some of them are the way they are. Now, the second thing about statistics that I want you to understand from me personally, since I'm the one that's going to be talking all these statistics to you, I never forget, not 1 minute do I forget, and I will ask you to not forget, that they are not just numbers, they represent people, human beings. So when I see a statistic that says, 34% of people have reported this problem in their life, I don't forget for 1 minute how awful that is. That a third of the people out there are going through something that's affecting every single day of their life. So that sort of thing makes this whole thing very personal to me, and it should be personal to all of us. Because in order to get to solutions and prevention, it's got to be personal. Now, the FBI and OSHA tell us there's 4 types of workplace violence. So they split it into 4 types and the percentage of the overall workplace violence that each one represents. The first one, type 1, this is someone comes to rob you at your workplace. So if you work at 7-Eleven and someone comes in and robs you and they hurt you in the process, that's this one. Now keep in mind that you might be a customer at 7-Eleven, right? And if you are, and someone robs it, and you get hurt in the process or killed, God forbid, you don't get a statistical tick mark for type 1. You go somewhere else, armed robbery, aggravated, whatever. So there you go with how statistics work, right? Type 2 violence is someone comes to our workplace to do business with us, client, contractor, and they bring violence with them. At Livermore, we had a group in the security organization called Threat Management Unit. And one of the things they did was anybody that wanted to come do business at the laboratory, they checked out, they did a little background check. They vetted them. And over the years, they turned some people away. Not droves or anything, but some. So I know, can't prove it with metrics, but I know intuitively they prevented some problems. Type 3, this is the one nobody gets away from. And it's also the most prevalent form of workplace violence. Okay, this is supervisor, coworker, coworker, coworker. What it really is it's telling us whenever people, 2 or more people, work together for a length of time, there's a potential for issues, right? We are social animals. Human beings are. You'll probably hear me say that a few more times because it matters, and it's sort of salient to this discussion. We work together for a while. Issues come up, issues come, issues go. I think of it as friction. And I love physics, so I think of it as one of those laws. This friction that develops, it almost always starts very small. And if another force doesn't act against it, body in motion stays in motion, then it will usually get worse. And if no one intervenes, it can get a lot worse, to whatever degree. So the whole idea here, and one of our overriding themes is, let's work on finding ways for supervisors and each other to find friction points early while they're teeny. Because they're so much easier to deal with them. But anyway, that's type 3. And type 4 is the hardest one to talk about, by far, hands down. And therefore, the most important, really. And so we have to spend a minute on that one, and we will. Just a quick note on this, the domestic violence connection for type 4, workplace violence. Those crazy, scary shootings we see all too often in the media, public shootings at a restaurant or even a couple different homes. Over half of the mass killing, shooting, death, stab, fire, murder rampages that we see, over half of them have a domestic violence connection. That's how big that one is. And maybe another tick mark on the way to helping you understand why a former Marine would stand up here and be this guy. An incident of that occurred in my immediate family, and it was one of the worst case scenario types, murder-suicide. I know it's bad from that. I know it's bad from having my brain be awash with all these statistics and talking to women for the last 5 years about this ad nauseum. I know how bad this is. And so we have to spend a minute, and we will. Okay, none of you are suffering with any of these myths, because you probably wouldn't be here. But a lot of people are, unfortunately. And like I said earlier, if a very busy manager or a management team is, they just don't have the time, space, logistics, budget, anything for additional stuff, then it's easy to put stuff out of your mind, and it's easy to rationalize. It's easy to slip into denial. But the fact is that, like we said a minute ago, there's always a potential for problems, threats, whatever you want to call them, always. That second bullet there, leakage, that term we'll hear a couple times, and it sort of gets us started talking about these behaviors. When people are having problems, a lot of times it's noticeable. Sometimes it's harder to notice, but a lot of times if someone's only looking, some of the things are fairly obvious. Leakage means when, it's one of these industry terms, I guess, I see it everywhere. It means when someone's getting to a bad point in their life, not necessarily they're going to be a mass murderer, but just having problems, a lot of times they talk about it, or they give other signs of it. Maybe it's social media stuff like that. And it's a great chance for prevention if someone's only paying attention and knows what to do with it. So we'll talk a lot more about that. The last most important point, and we will hammer this one home with giant sledgehammers and railroad ties, this point, okay? People do not just snap. It does not happen, okay? Every time, without fail, there's one of these worst case things, and not even the worst case things. Maybe it's just a fist fight, whatever. There are always things leading up to that, always. It's just a lot of the time, they're either not noticed, willfully maybe, or just not noticed. Because we're all so busy, and our lives and the world is moving about 1,000,000 miles an hour right now, for all of us. Time's going so fast, right? But people don't just snap. They don't. And so we'll start with the case study, and then we'll jump to one of the horrible worst cases for a second. Now, this is an AP story, and in the headline of the story, it says, he just snapped. And it's in quotes in the headline because this monster who slaughtered, and it turned out to be 9 people in a mall in Omaha, he said it himself in the note that he left. He said, I snapped. I just snapped. Then in the rest of the note, he proves the point I just made. Okay, so let me just read you this monster's note real quick. I know everyone will remember me as some sort of monster. And he is dead on right about that. That's exactly what he is. But please understand, this is important, okay? I just don't want to be a burden on the people I care about for my entire life. And there's your 50-pound clue bat right there, okay? And he was a burden. And of course, the post-mortem investigation into this incident showed what they always show. A lot of the usual boxes checked off. Violent media, video games, medical problems, family problems, legal problems. He had a bunch of them. They all do. So it's kind of noble now, right? From him, he says, look, I know I'm a problem. My mom's crying all the time. I'm leaving. I'm done. And let me finish his note real quick. I just want to take a few pieces of blank with me. So here's this noble guy, right? He's got to this crisis point in his life, crisis state. He knows he can't go on. He's hurting his family. He loves his family. So he's going to check out. And that's a noble thing. And, since I'm going anyway, let me just take some pieces of blank out with me. And so you can see how noble this act is, right? You may be doing what I used to always do right now. I hope you're not, but you might be, where you go, hold the phone. Those were strangers. You did not know them. They were complete random strangers that he just slaughtered that were at a mall to get some clothes or buy some food or meet somebody. How the hell does he know they're pieces of blank? I used to do that all the time, try to get in that head and go, if I could just understand that, if I could relate to him, but don't. I don't do it anymore. And you should not do it. You should not do it. It's not good for nice people like us to do this. It's not good. But here's what you have to do. And I have to do it. And I told my mom she has to do it. And my kids and everybody that I know and love. You have to do this. You have to accept that monster existed. And there are many, many, many more like him. And here's the hardest part that you have to accept. That you and me and my beautiful daughters and my mom and your grandma, all of us represent those pieces of blank. Okay? Whose perspective matters when the bullets are flying? It's the guy with the gun. And that's what we've just got to get to. And here's another case study about to discuss motives for a second. Might remember this Salt Lake City, the trolley-square shooting. You might remember it because, like so many things in our culture these days, it went political because it has some religious political connection, which I will very quickly dispel in you that matters one bit. So this monster was a self-described jihadist, and he one day decided that he was going to do what I guess now the term for it is spontaneous jihad syndrome. He's not affiliated with Al-Qaeda or anybody. He just wanted to do his part for the team, right? So this monster goes to a public mall and he kills 5 strangers because they're a different religion than him. The monster in Omaha killed 9 people because they were pieces of blank. So once again, I'll ask you or remind you, to those dead people, when you're standing in the mall and all of a sudden some maniac is trying to kill you, at that time, at that moment, it just doesn't really matter why and what's on his mind. For his own reasons, whether they're this reason or that reason, he's decided he's going to kill us. And now our problem is a different problem. It's not trying to figure him out anymore. Okay? This one would have been significantly worse, I guarantee you, except there was an off-duty police officer having Valentine's Day lunch with his wife in the mall, doing what all good cops should do, carrying his firearm off-duty. And so he heard the gunshots, he kissed his wife and secured her safely under a table. He went out into the mall and he did battle with this monster, or it would have been a lot worse. He had the wherewithal to kill a lot more people. All right, so here's the spectrum again, only now there's a nifty little rectangle to grab our attention. And the point that I would like to make very quickly here is all these behaviors we're about to talk about and all the things I already threw up there, it's not like I'm going to start over here on the left, get my card checked, advance slightly to the right, do the next behavior, move on. It doesn't go like that, okay? There's no linear progression or anything. It can jump around a little. But here's the one